Welcome everyone to our 2026 public budget meeting. Happy New Year. I'd like to begin by reading the land acknowledgement. As we gather today, I would respectfully acknowledge on behalf of Council and the community that the City of Pembroke resides on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. It is with this statement that we honor and respect the Algonquins on whose land we reside. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Jacquino. Those in favor? Thank you. This meeting has been called to consider the draft 2026 budget to establish annual fees to be charged for garbage collection and disposal, the waste management facility, and to adopt the 2026 budgets for the City, Pembroke, and local boards. Clerk, please report how notice of meeting was given.
A media release was posted on the city's website and social media platforms on November 18th, 2025. Notices were placed in the Pembroke Observer and News during the week of November 23rd, 2025, and again during the week of November 30th, 2025. The notice was also posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on November 18th, 2025. In addition, radio advertisements on both local radio stations were scheduled to run throughout the week of January 5th through 13th, 2026.
Thank you. I'd like now to have our treasurer, Ms. Lochte, make her presentation about the 2026 City of Pembroke budget. Welcome.
Thank you, everybody, and good evening. So tonight, I'm here to present, along with my staff, the 2026 budget passed by council so far. So before I get going, I would like to thank my team that I have sitting with me today, without whom I wouldn't be able to do the job that I do. So with me tonight presenting, I will also have Marsha Hawthorne, the Deputy Treasurer and Purchasing Manager for the City of Pembroke, as well as Jennifer Belair, who is our Financial Planning Analyst and who is responsible for the city's asset management plan. And as always, a big shout out to Ashley Perrier, who helps me to no end coordinating the budget each year with the departments and council. So thank you, Ashley. So 2026 budget took a slightly different path this year because of new strong mayor legislation. So we did start our budget a little bit earlier than in previous years. So we did start at the beginning of August, working with department heads to consult with their staff, incorporate public feedback, and develop a draft budget for discussion between the CAO, treasurer, and the committee chairs, which took place in October. So we have added a new step to our process. So in November, a consolidated draft budget prepared by staff was reviewed by the mayor and was presented to council without any mayoral changes, as per past practice before the strong mayor's legislation. So council deliberated the draft budget on December 9th and 10th. They did make an amendment to the budget at the second meeting of council in December, and tonight we are holding our public budget meeting to go over and provide a summary of the 2026 budget to date. So under the strong mayor's legislation, the budget is deemed passed on January 22nd, 2026. So as always, I'd like to start the budget overview with just discussing a bit the regulatory environment that the city has to operate in. So municipalities are created by the province of Ontario, and as a result, we have to comply with many different laws and regulations. So overarching all of our operations is the Ontario Municipal Act. And in addition to the rules and regulations set out in that act, the administration also has to comply with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, the Municipal Elections Act, which will come into play this year, the Lottery Licensing Policy Manual, the Marriage Act, the Vital Statistics Act, the Employment Standards Act, We have debt and financial obligation limits we need to respect, as well as municipal tax sale rules. So this is a sample of some of the regulations that the administration must follow in our operations. As we look in each department has its own set of rules and regulations that it has to follow. So for example, the fire department has to follow the Fire Protection and Prevention Act of 1997, as well as the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act of Ontario. The roads department needs to follow the Canadian Environmental Protection Act, the Waste Management Act, the Highway Traffic Act, the minimum maintenance standards therein, as well as the Construction Lien Act. Parks and Recreation, for example, has to follow Electrical Safety Authority rules, excuse me, Technical Standards and Safety, Canadian Standards Association for Mechanical Refrigeration, the Accessibility for Ontarians Disability Act, as well as Ontario Public Health Standards. And Planning, Building, and Bylaw have to follow laws such as the Ontario Building Code, the Planning Act, the Development Charges Act, and respect the Provincial Policy Statement of 2020. So all of these rules and regulations constrain how much freedom the city has to determine how to manage its operations, because we are limited by all of the rules and regulations that are set by the province. So it's important to keep that in mind as we discuss the budget, that there's certainly a large section of it that we really don't have a lot of control over. So as we look at the 2026 budget itself, the 2026 budget as approved by council reflects a $29.6 million tax levy. So this is the amount of money that we need to raise through property taxation across the city to residential, commercial, industrial, multi-res, and farm properties. This represents a 6.99% levy increase after growth. So that's the change between the 2025 budget and the 2026 budget, and reflects a 6.94% tax rate increase over last year. Overall, including all of our other user fees, charges, and grants that we receive, the city will work with a $43.8 million operating budget and plans to undertake work of $30.7 million in capital projects. So if we look at our tax ratios and rates, the 2026 budget as approved by council reflects an increase to garbage fees. So we have not changed garbage fees, I would think, since at least I started here back in 2019. So it's been over 5 years that the garbage fees have been frozen as we were awaiting legislative changes with producer pay recycling. So for the first time, we are going to need to adapt our garbage fees to the new cost of garbage collection in the city. And we are going to implement that increase over 3 years. So in 2026, there will be a $22.50 increase, increasing our rate from $158 per property to $180.50 per property. Our Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Center fee will undergo a 3% increase to reflect inflation. Because our property assessment is still not changing, I am proposing to keep our tax ratios the same, which will be discussed at the special council meeting later this evening. And that will reflect and sort of maintain stability between the different property tax classes in the city from 2025 to 2026. And the PBIA rates will increase by 5.48%, which covers their budget of $221,609. So for our water and sewer rates, under Ontario's Safe Drinking Water Act, the city is required to prepare financial plans for our water systems to ensure sufficient revenue is generated to provide safe drinking water to our community. So currently we do have a new rate study underway. We do expect the results of that rate study to come in, I would think, this winter, within the next month or two. So right now we are still basing our rates on our 2019 and 2020 Watson and Associates economists financial plan that they prepared for us for a 10-year study period covering 2020 to 2029. And the agreement that was reached between the city and the township of Laurentian Valley requires the city to base water and sanitary sewer rates on these studies. So as I mentioned, we do expect to have final rate estimates available shortly, but in the meantime, we have made some assumptions based on that 2019 study. So in accordance with the legal requirements of Ontario's Safe Drinking Water Act, the 2026 budget for water services reflects a $4.6 million operating budget, $8.2 million worth of capital projects and infrastructure, a 5.7% increase to flat water rates, and a 9.8% increase to metered water rates. So these are holding the increases that we have been undertaking for the past 5 years. For sanitary sewer, the 2026 budget reflects a $5.4 million operating budget, a $1.8 million capital budget, and an increase of 1% to 6.2% increase to flat sewer rates and a 7.9% increase to metered sanitary sewer rates. So overall, if we add all of these different elements together, the 2026 changes to property taxes, garbage, water, and sanitary sewer fees will impact the average properties as follows. So the average residential assessment in the city of Pembroke is still holding to that 2016 assessment of $185,000. So today's market prices do not impact how taxes are calculated in the city of Pembroke. And the city of Pembroke, as with all municipalities across Ontario, are still using your property's 2016 valuation. So certainly any residential home would obviously, the average residential home would sell for much more than $185,000, but that is what property taxes are based on, is that older number. So in total, property taxes, garbage, water, and sanitary sewer will increase by $353 a year. The average multi-residential 12-unit property would increase by $2,682 a year. A commercial retail establishment would increase by $734 a year, and industrial would increase by $812 per year. I will say that there has been a new change, which we'll discuss more in our special council meeting tonight, in that the non-eligible sources for recycling, which would include commercial properties, the cost of that has increased. So the different municipalities in the Upper Ottawa Valley are in the process of concluding contract talks regarding stop pickup charges for commercial recycling that's not included in the new Province of Ontario Producer Pay Program. So there will likely need to be an additional waste recycling collection fee to commercial properties in addition to that $734 a year. So we will be working through the details of that in the next month or two, and we'll have more information as soon as that's available. So if we look at the residential comparison and we split it between property taxes, water, and sewer, property taxes will increase for the average resident by $21.57 a month, water by $2.89 a month, and sewer by $4.98 a month. So as we'll see when we get to some of the feedback that the city has had on the budget, affordability is certainly something that's top of mind to residents and council as well, because I know that was something that was discussed at the second council meeting in December, where council decided to reduce the overall levy increase by 1% in an attempt to make our tax increase this year more affordable to residents. It's important to remember that income-based taxation is something that's set by the province and not the city of Pembroke. So property tax is not an income-based tax. Only the province and the federal government have income-based taxation. And as I mentioned earlier, the province of Ontario has a lot of control over what municipalities can and cannot do. So the province of Ontario determines the services the city is financially responsible for. So for example, in the Municipal Act, they tell us that we're responsible for local roads, policing, water, sewer, etc. The province sets laws and regulations about how these services need to be managed. So for example, these laws and regulations tell us that roads must meet Ontario's minimum maintenance standards, for example. And as I mentioned, all of the departments in the city have their own sets of laws and regulations they have to follow. And the province of Ontario determines how the city can raise funds to pay for these responsibilities. So for the city, our revenues are limited to property taxes, which again is not an income-based tax, and user fees, as well as, receiving grants from the province and federal government. So those are the only types of revenue the city has access to when funding our responsibilities. So the lack of income-based taxes at the municipal level is corrected through the Ontario Trillium Benefit, which includes the Ontario Energy and Property Tax Credit. And this credit compares property taxes paid to income and provides a credit to lower income households in Ontario. So the Ontario Trillium Benefit helps low to moderate income Ontario residents and is a combined payment of the Ontario Energy and Property Tax Credit, the Northern Ontario Energy Credit, and the Ontario Sales Tax Credit. And it's designed to help both low to moderate income residents with sales tax on energy and with property taxes. And the Seniors Homeowners Property Tax Grant offers similar benefits. So the maximum 2025 tax benefit for property taxes for non-seniors was $998, and for seniors was $1,176. So it's important that you don't see that on your tax bill, but if you are eligible for the Trillium Benefit, a portion of that funding that you might receive every month is related to the property taxes paid by residents that reside in the city of Pembroke. In addition, the city does have a property tax assistance program. So this program is eligible to low-income seniors receiving the Guaranteed Income Supplement and low-income persons with disabilities receiving support under the Ontario Disability Support Program. So eligible persons can elect to defer property tax increases from their primary residence and any related interest until such time as either they're no longer eligible to receive benefits or the property is sold. So again, this essentially freezes your tax bill until such time as essentially the home is sold. So that's under City Bylaw 2023-52. And if there's anybody interested, please reach out to the Treasury Department and the Property Tax Department for more information. So certainly, as I mentioned, the city's options to manage affordability at the municipal level are limited and can be quite unpopular. So at the city level, options to manage affordability include deferring infrastructure projects, which we do, I would say, on a regular basis. But this can result in higher costs overall due to expensive emergency maintenance and local disruption of services. We can try to limit or decrease services and service levels where possible. We can't always do this because, as I mentioned, we do have provincial legislation, standards, and regulations that must be met. Certainly, if we look at the different departments that we operate, recreation services has the highest cutback potential because it's non-essential or can be considered an optional service. But at the end of the day, recreation services are what make our community a community, and they support a healthy and vibrant community. So, and we certainly saw that come to play, and I think was probably the most well-attended public budget meeting in my career was the decision of council to close the pool to try to save funding, and the vast amount of local pushback there was against that approach that council tried to take. So again, limiting and decreasing services can be extremely unpopular, and it's something residents want, and there's a cost that unfortunately that comes along with it. The other option is to use debt and long-term planning to help spread infrastructure costs and cost increases over multiple years to try to limit large one-time tax increases that might be needed. So that's something that we're looking at doing right now. As we'll see when we start to talk about our capital projects and our infrastructure funding gap, we are looking at trying to spread out funding correction for our infrastructure portfolio over a number of years to try to keep our plan as affordable as possible while still maintaining our infrastructure in a cost-effective manner. So with that, I will pass the microphone over to my Deputy Treasurer, who will go over the city operating budget.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For the next two slides, slides 19 and 20, these slides provide a comprehensive overview of the city's 2026 operating budget by department. It shows the approved 2025 budget, the proposed 2026 budget, and how departmental revenues offset total operating expenses. Overall, the 2026 operating budget reflects cost increases across many service areas, primarily driven by inflation, contractual obligations, provincially mandated cost, and service demand. At the same time, user fees and other revenues continue to play an important role in reducing the impact on costs. Starting with taxation, the 2026 requirement increases from approximately 27.5 million to 29.7. The increase is reflective of growth primarily in the city's multi-residential category. Mayor and council show a modest increase in 2026, reflecting an approximate 2.5% honorarium increase and additional training opportunities for new council members. This year, we've included a few key updates in our financial section. We're introducing a new volunteer appreciation event to celebrate the contributions of our community members. Some costs have gone up, including insurance and legal fees, while bank interest revenues is expected to be lower. We continue to support our capital projects through internal transfers, and we're nearing the end of our solar panel loan repayments with only the Miramichi loan remaining. On the funding side, the city will receive an additional support from provincial grants, mainly the OMPF and OSIF. We've also increased the library board grant by $20,000 and added $30,000 for strategic partnerships to strengthen community programs. Finally, we are seeing a decrease in dividends from ORES and ORPC. Overall, this budget balances our ongoing commitments with investments in community services and partnerships. The administration budget includes a new deputy clerk position and a modern Teams phone system to support staff and improve city services. It also reflects a 3.25% cost of living increase for all employees, ongoing computer equipment updates, and investment in records management modernization. Additionally, a reserve is set aside for the future replacement of the city's financial system to ensure long-term efficiency and sustainability. The 2026 election cost will be covered through a transfer from the Election Reserve Fund. Human resources and purchasing has remained stable over the year. City property section shows a decrease, mainly due to a decrease to the legal section of the budget. In protective services, fire services, increases in 2026 are due to rising operating and staffing costs, partially offset by revenues. The fire department will also be exploring a new dispatch option, costs associated with collective bargaining, and the cost increase of maintenance on some of the fire equipment. OPP services increases reflecting provincially determined billing cost and the 2024 reconciliation of over $413,000 that the city must absorb. The police service board remains essentially unchanged. Animal control shows a slight increase primarily based on the new contract. Building inspection and bylaw enforcement sections are largely driven by service demand, with significant fee-based revenues helping reduce the impact on cost, mainly increase in building permit revenues and parking meter revenue expected for 2026. The roads budget increase are to support ongoing maintenance and operations with limited revenues offset. Costs include COLA adjustments for staff at approximately 4% rise in insurance rates and higher legal expenses for drainage and stormwater agreements. Moving into additional operating areas, traffic control shows a modest increase due to higher utility and maintenance costs with no associated revenues. The minimum maintenance standards have a requirement for the retro reflectivity, which will be complete in the spring of 2026. Revenue for garbage collection services is increasing due to the implementation of the new curbside collection rates. The city has extended the Miller contract. Recycling services are now managed by the Circulator, I hope I'm saying that right, Materials Ontario. And a transfer of $351,000 to reserves has been planned to support the future expansion of the Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Facility. Transit reflects the on-demand transit service pilot year 2 of 3. Revenues are expected to increase with ridership. The budget also reflects a contribution to reserves in the amount of $142,000. The 2026 budget for Parks, Recreation, Kingsman Pool, and Aquatic Center includes cost of living adjustments, expands training, and equipment upgrades. Canada Day is now a 2-day event with associated firework and security cost. A new contract line has been added for citywide tree removal to address the ash borer issue. The department will offer 2 intake for community grants, and the city will contribute to a reserve for the aquatic center studies. Development charges are collected and then transferred to reserves for future use for different projects within the city. Planning includes cost of living adjustment increases, a decrease to legal fees, and costs associated with the official plan review, which is to be done in 2026. The economic development and tourism budget reflects an increase in salaries due to cost of living adjustments and the addition of a new economic development officer, along with higher training costs. The city anticipates greater demand for the CIP program in 2026 with the introduction of a few new categories. Additional costs are also driven by the business retention and expansion project and an increase in promotional items. So slide 21, this slide shows the city's source of revenue for 2026. The majority of our funding, 68%, comes from taxation, which supports the delivery of essential services to residents. Federal and provincial grants contribute 14.7%, helping to offset costs for projects and infrastructure. Other sources of revenue include garbage and recycling charge at 4.4%, various fees and user charges at 4.3%, and recreation user fees at 3.3%. We also draw on reserves for 2.7% of our funding and earn 2.6% from investment and interest income. Together, these revenue sources ensure that we maintain core services, fund infrastructure, and support community programs in a substantial way. Slide 22. Formula-based grant revenues in Ontario refer to non-competitive funding allocation methods used by the government to distribute funds to public sector bodies such as municipalities using a predetermined set of criteria and formulas. The City of Pembroke will be receiving the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, or OMPF, which is confirmed to be increased by $65,400, which helps support general municipal operations. The court security grant shows a slight projected decrease of just a little over $1,100, though this amount has not yet been officially confirmed by the province. The Canada Community Building Fund, which is the old gas tax, will remain the same, just a little over $940,000, which is the same as 2025. The provincial gas tax is also expected to remain unchanged, though we are waiting for confirmation. And lastly, Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, which is OSIF, is confirmed to be increased by a little over $195,000, which helps fund infrastructure projects or asset management projects. It's important to note that some of these numbers are still pending for final approval, so these figures are used for budget planning purposes. Overall, we are seeing a modest change in grant funding. Slide 23, application-based grants are competitive funds requiring a formal application detailing the needs or project. The city has applied for several different grants reflected in the 2026 budget. At this time, the only confirmed grant is the Connecting Links for $810,000, and this will be for the River Road Phase 2 project. The unconfirmed grants at this time are the Fire Protection Grant for the Clean Room Project, Safe School Grant for Our Lady of Lourdes Sidewalk Project, Water Stream Grant for the Reservoir Project, and the Federal Green and Inclusive Community Building Grant for the Victoria Hall Upgrade Project. Slide 22. This slide shows the breakdown of the city's operating expenditures for the 2026 budget by category. The largest portion, 13.5%, is allocated to day-to-day operations. County and shared services make up 12.9%, followed closely by capital financing at 12.7%, parks and recreation at 12.6%. Police services also account for 12.6%, while fire services represent 10% of the budget. Other areas include general overhead and partnership at 7%, city administration at 6%, and garbage and recycling at 5.1%. Planning, bylaw, and building services make up 4.1%, economic development is 2.4%, and mayor and council expense represents 1%. Finally, taxation-related expenditures are only 0.1% of the total. Overall, this breakdown shows that the majority of our budget goes to core services that directly impact residents' daily lives, such as operations, public safety, recreation, and infrastructure. Slide 25. The $1.9 million increase in the 2026 operating budget is driven by three key factors. The largest portion relates to the shared services totaling $857,127, or 3.12% levy increase, which reflects costs outside of the city's control, such as land ambulance, social services, public health, long-term health care, and OPP services. The second driver is the capital levy, which is planned 2% annual increase of just a little over $548,000, which reflects a 2% levy increase to help address the city's infrastructure funding gap and support long-term asset sustainability. Finally, city operations account for over $511,000, or 1.87% levy increase, which reflects operational pressures and service delivery needs and will be detailed further on the next slide. Together, these items represent a total operating increase of a little over 1.9 million, or 6.99%. Slide 26. The 1.87% levy increase for city operations is driven by a combination of reduced revenues and targeted service investments. Lower interest rates are decreasing interest and investment income, place additional pressures on the levy. Approved staffing and the continuation of the transit pilot project continue to impact the operating budget. Additional increases support legislative and operational requirements such as fire services and system upgrades, the official plan review, enhanced economic development programs, increased administration capacity, and necessary park maintenance related to the ash borer issues throughout the city. Reserve funding for the 2024 surplus was used to decrease the 2026 property tax levy by 1%. Shared services. The province requires municipalities to contribute to the cost of services such as Ontario Works, childcare, land, ambulance, social housing, long-term care, provincial offences, and our local health unit. While the province provides partial funding, these services are not fully covered. They are delivered and budgeted by the County of Renfrew, with the city responsible for its proportional share. As the county has not yet approved its 2026 budget, we anticipate an increase in shared services cost of approximately a little over $718,000 for the county's services and a little over $15,000 for the local health unit. The City of Pembroke's OPP costs are calculated using a province-wide model and are comprised of two main components, which is base policing costs and calls for service. For 2026, the OPP contract is estimated to increase by 4%, or $193,906. Additionally, the city will need to cover the $413,000 in OPP cost arising from the 2024 reconciliation. Thank you. So now we'll pass over the 2026 capital budget to Jennifer Belair.
Thank you. A total of $30.7 million is proposed for capital projects in 2026. It's made up of $5.5 million for buildings, facilities, and parks, $14 million for roads, bridges, and storm, $1.2 million for fleet, $1.8 million for sanitary sewer, and $8.2 million for water. The capital projects are funded through various sources, including $2.4 million carried forward from 2025, $2.5 million from reserves, $1.3 million in cost sharing, $9.9 million from grants, $2.4 million from property taxes, and $4.4 million from the water and sewer rates. This is a breakdown of the projects by type and financing. So if we look at the roads section, $1 million is from carry forward, $653,000 from water, $1.4 million from sewer, $246,000 from reserves, $4.7 million from grants, $4.9 in debt, and $897,000 from taxation. This graph displays the capital spending over a 5-year period by separating projects into infrastructure, parks and facilities, and fleet. Capital infrastructure projects planned for 2026 include $800,000 for dehumidification at the Kinsman Pool, $2 million to replace the floor and boards at PACC, $480,000 to relocate the transformer at PMC, and $900,000 for the reconstruction of the river wall and stairs at Coronation Park. Major infrastructure projects include $4 million for Phase 3 of Isabella reconstruction and $6.1 million for the reconstruction and extension of Quarry Road. $932,000 of road resurfacing projects include segments of Angus Campbell, First Avenue, Forest Road, International Drive, Mary Street, Town Line Road, and William Street, and $170,000 in sidewalk replacements for sections of Alfred Street, Chamberlain Street, McKay, Maple, Supple, Welland, and William Street. The capital project inflation. So the city's contribution to capital projects lags inflation by an estimated $493,825, which is down from 2025, which was $574,000. Since Q3 of 2020, the StatsCan Building Construction Index has increased by 47%, while the city's contribution will have only increased by 22.2%. The city's June 2024 non-core asset management plan revealed a significant funding gap to maintain city assets in fair condition over and above existing inflationary pressures. So additional capital funding is required to close this gap. As an annual funding gap, the impact of not fully funding inflation each year becomes significant over time. Since 2022, this gap has now reached $2.5 million, which represents sufficient funding to undertake a major road upgrade. By not maintaining pace with inflation, city asset renewal falls further behind, and increased annual funding to update city infrastructure is required to close this gap. A shortage of annual capital funding will continue to push major infrastructure projects until the funding gap is closed. Funding is needed to complete 2 major projects per year, but is only available to support 1 major project. So this is a list of major infrastructure projects that should be undertaken. The city owns infrastructure assets, excluding water and sanitary sewer, with an estimated replacement cost of $412.5 million. Based on the useful life of these assets, approximately 11 million of these assets are consumed or utilized each year. In comparison, the city will contribute $3.9 million in 2026 to fund capital projects and capital reserve contributions. In addition, the city receives $3.1 million from the CCBF and the OSIP grants. With only $7 million in total funding provided, this reveals an annual funding gap of $4 million. So the 2% capital levy increase is included in the 2026 budget. And moving forward, this will close the annual funding gap over an 8-year period. An additional $17.1 million backlog of overdue capital projects will be generated during this period. The city's asset management plan update will review how this policy will impact future levels of service and asset conditions. And I'll pass it back over to Treasurer.
Thank you. So in accounting, it's if you can prove a problem exists a number of different ways by calculating in a few different ways, you know it's a problem. So I think what Jennifer has shown is that, like, no matter how you look at it, there just isn't enough funding right now to meet the needs of our infrastructure right now. And that's something that's going to have to be fixed over time. That's not something that we're going to be able to solve overnight. But certainly the combination of slowly increasing funding over time and using debt is what we're going to need to do to be able to meet these challenges moving forward, as well as looking ahead to establishing reserves and maintaining reserves so that we're slowly correcting the problem over time as well, so that the councils 20, 25 years from now are not going to face the same challenges that this current city council and the next one will have to face. Certainly, every year I do review the status of the city reserves, reserve funds, and debt. So currently, the city expects to have overall debt on the books by the end of this year of about $8.9 million, and we will be making repayments of principal of about $1.3 million in 2026. And as mentioned, we are using debt as a way to help finance and spread the cost of infrastructure replacement over time. So we are expecting to close our Town Line Force Main debt as this project is now complete in 2026. We are looking to spend, if memory serves, about $4 million on extending Quarry Road to help address traffic in Pembroke. So again, this project will be financed through debt. We are looking at packaging some of the renovation work that's needed in some of our recreation facilities into bundles and financing that through debt. So we are planning to plan this year and undertake work next year at Pem Ice 2 as new ice surface and boards and all of the systems that go with it need to be replaced along with the aging siding. And we are looking at installing a new reservoir at our Quarry Road location as part of our water tower project. And again, that will also is a significant financial project that will be using debt to finance. So these are kind of in the works. On the plus side, we do have two loans that are going to become due and mature in 2026, and that includes the pollution control plant and the Miramichi Lodge loan that we had. So we do collect development charges every year from new builds across the city to help pay for infrastructure. So currently we have $436,000 in a reserve fund, broken down into the different categories shown here that we can use to fund projects related to growth. In 2025, we have spent this funding on some new equipment in parks, including a mower and a UTV. We are refreshing our background study right now and plan to have a new development charges bylaw passed by June. And we also acquired a new single axle plow truck for the Gulf View subdivision and new subdivisions in the city of Pembroke. So based on the 2021 background study, we do plan to use some of these development charges for projects in 2026, which includes a new tractor for the Parks Department, again, to complete the work for our development charges background study, as well as the water tower and water reservoir project at Quarry Road. And as per the More Homes Built Faster Act, beginning in 2023, a municipality has to spend or allocate at least 60% of funds held in reserve at the beginning of the year for water, wastewater, and roads. So this slide describes our commitments to these funds, which currently exceed available funding. So in future, we are looking at acquiring another single axle truck. We would like to undertake work at Nelson Street Phase 3. We're just waiting to have some more funding for that. We do need a new lift station at Supple's Landing, as well as some additional water studies and the new water tower that will be coming into play over the next 5 years. So again, looking at our tax, water, and sewer bills, this slide shows a detailed breakdown of how that breaks out between municipal taxes, education taxes, garbage and waste collection, water fees, and sewer fees to show the increases both in percentage and dollar amount between the different types of property tax payers in the city. And I think this is one of my last slides. A commonly asked question is, where do my city tax dollars go? So if we break down our budget by service categories and we net out the revenues and grants that we receive, every $1 of city property taxes collected goes towards the following services. So out of every $1, 19 cents of that dollar is related to our county and shared services. So that's our homes for the aged, ambulance, health unit, that kind of thing. 17 cents relates to road operations. 17 cents is policing. 14 cents relates to fire protection and the fire department, as well as 14 cents for parks and recreation. 8 cents of that dollar is related to our capital projects and financing those capital projects. 5% is related to our general government, strategic partners, and other. 3% relating to planning, building, and bylaw departments. 2 cents goes towards economic development, tourism, and culture, and 1 cent goes towards transit. So I'll pass the microphone back to Jennifer, who will go over our budget priorities engagement survey.
Thanks. We conducted a short survey to obtain feedback regarding the budget, and we will review the results during the special meeting of council following this budget meeting. But we just wanted to provide a snapshot during this meeting. So overall, the level of satisfaction for value received, 42% were dissatisfied, 37% were neutral, and 20% of respondents were satisfied. The preferred approach regarding levels of service versus tax rate or user fee increases. So 40% of respondents chose to reduce services to keep taxes and fees from increasing. 27% chose to maintain services and only increase rates if needed. And 15% chose to increase services even if it meant an increase in rates. And road repairs were identified as the highest budget priority. There's currently a backlog of projects and priorities that require funding to maintain current services and service levels. However, the demand is exceeding available funding. A couple of challenges that we face are the legislative requirements mandated by the province for many of our assets, as well as the limited control the city has over shared service costs. The city will be increasing the use of engagement platform to inform residents of projects across multiple departments. And the feedback from surveys will help inform the city's asset management plan, which is to be updated in 2026 to ensure long-term sustainability. And I'll pass it back to the treasurer.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I'll pass it back to the chair for comments from committee at this time.
Thank you very much, Madam Treasurer and staff, Treasury staff, for the presentation. We will now ask the chairs of the council standing committees each provide their comments. Due to time limits, I would ask the comments be limited to 3 minutes each. I'll start as the chair of the Finance Administration Committee. Thank you to everyone joining us this evening, both in person and online, and to the residents who completed the budget survey, shared feedback tonight, and personally contacted myself and other council members. We thank you. We appreciate the time you've taken to share your thoughts and ideas and concerns. We're here to listen and learn together. As Chair of the Finance and Administration Committee, I want to extend my sincere thanks to our Treasury Department, led by Ms. Lochte, for their professionalism and dedication. Their hard work with our CEO, directors, managers, and staff across the city has brought us to this point as we present the 2026 City of Pembroke budget. Special thanks go to Ms. Lochte, along with Ms. Hawthorne, Ms. Belair, Ms. Perrier, and the entire Treasury team, as well as our directors, managers, and citywide staff who contributed to this detailed and demanding budget process. Our 2 days of deliberations last December were challenging, to say the least. Like all Ontario municipalities, Pembroke continues to face pressures from inflation, rising costs, and ongoing provincial downloading that impacts every household and business. Added to this are growing safety and liability concerns, along with new laws and regulations that all municipalities must follow. These priorities play a major role in budget decisions as we work to keep residents, staff, and city assets safe and protected. Council approved a 6.9% overall tax levy increase after assessment growth, which includes a 0.9% stabilization reduction to support affordability. Of this, 3.87% supports city operations, 1.87% for core services, and 2% to help close our $4 million infrastructure gap for roads and facilities. Shared county services such as OPP, ambulance, public health, and social programs add another 3.12%, reflecting growing social and public safety demands that are often beyond our control. Next week at the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference, we'll continue to push for fair and more sustainable funding. The Association of Municipalities of Ontario has proposed a joint task force with the province to create a social and economic prosperity review aiming to modernize the funding model for municipalities of all sizes. In my personal view, communities like Pembroke are carrying too much of the cost for provincial programs. This limits what we can invest in programming, facilities, safety, and essential local services. A more balanced cost-sharing model would ease the over $4 billion province-wide reliance on municipal taxation and help communities strengthen infrastructure, mental health supports, and homelessness prevention programs, all key to affordability and growth across Ontario. It's now more important than ever that we continue pursuing all available federal, provincial, and other grant opportunities to lessen the local tax burden. No council member takes tax increases lightly. We live here too. This budget protects the progress we've made, maintains essential services, and safeguards the quality of life our residents deserve. We will continue to work with the province to find a more affordable solution. Thank you. I now call on the Vice Chair of the Operations Committee, Mayor Gervais, for his comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Councillor Plummer isn't available this evening, so just restricting myself just to the operational side of things. As council members know, that the Chair and Vice Chair meet with the Director on a regular basis to not only discuss ongoing projects and what's taking place operationally in the city, but as the budget was being prepared by staff, the Chair and Vice Chair certainly met with the Director and staff, Ms. McLaughlin and so forth, to go over what was going to be proposed to council, and it's my understanding that all of the different departments did the same thing with their chairs and vice chairs. I'm not going to go over and reiterate everything that the Treasury and staff in its entirety have gone over in respect to operations. But clearly, as a council, we've often talked about needs and wants, and certainly in terms of the ratepayers, they have needs, and those needs, generally speaking, they want to see the infrastructure being worked on. We've seen in terms of the, and we'll hear a little bit later at the next meeting, we hear from the public that they want to see roads, sewers, sidewalks, and so forth worked on. And we've known for a while that there's an ongoing issue. We're always trying to maintain and balance our budget because, as Councillor Giacono will often say, is that we're not allowed to run a deficit and we're not allowed to run a deficit. And so as a result, constantly trying to play that balancing act. And unfortunately, what would often take the short end of the stick is capital. And then we end up paying for it in the long run, which is what the Treasury in a nice way is trying to say, is that if you're not doing the appropriate work to keep infrastructure projects going and keep our infrastructure in a good state of repair, then you end up paying for it on the maintenance side of things. I do commend the province that they came up with this concept of asset management because it really put a magnifying glass on the total situation and certainly brought it to the forefront. I know that we've met with different ministers and I know and I commend all of council for going to, whether it's be Eastern Ontario Mayor's Caucus, Roma, AMO, meeting with MPs, MPPs, and so forth, is to have a conversation. It's all well and good to have an asset management plan, but how are you going to finance it? And so that's, comes to, and restricting myself to operations, you see that we're going to be spending more than $30 million on capital projects. And I recognize some of it the public probably doesn't understand. They don't see it because some of it's in the ground. So roads, underneath the road, unlike, and I keep getting asked in terms of county roads and how come we can't plow quick as the county and so forth. The fact of the matter is, underneath our roads is storm, there's water, there's infrastructure there that isn't the situation in the rural settings. And so as a result, whenever we do a major reconstruction project, significant cost because of that infrastructure that's in the ground. And I recognize that the public doesn't see what's in the ground, and it's not sexy because it's water, it's sewer, it's things that just come to expect it. And you turn on the tap, you're going to get clean, potable water, and you're not going to get sick. But that is something that we have to consider. This is something that we have to ensure that there's appropriate funding towards. I'm very pleased with the amount of capital projects that are in this particular budget, especially when that one page in terms of the graph, and we see that we're coming back to levels being spent that is more in tune with, I think it was the year 2023, to see the different projects being undertaken, because that's generally speaking, I know as in terms of as mayor, that's the complaints that I get is that I'm hitting potholes, I'm wrecking my car, what are you going to do about it? And so those are the things that the public sees. They don't necessarily see things underneath, but we know from the last water main break on our major water main that it's significant and it's life altering, and people were asked to reduce consumption, and it was very serious. And so it's trying to spend the appropriate amount of money on those different items. I would say that we have and will continue to work with all levels of government. I am quite confident that we will see, I see there's a number of grants that says unconfirmed. I'm very confident that we will see funds. Why? Because this council is advocating at AMO, Roma, Eastern Ontario Mayor's Caucus, with our MP, with our MPP. We are working hard behind the scenes. The public doesn't normally see it, doesn't often see it, but we are working hard to try and achieve those dollars. But I know that, the CAO has heard this from me many different times, is we talk about predictable and sustainable funding, and that's the message when I know Councillor Keel and the Deputy Mayor are going to Roma together with the CAO, is predictable and sustainable funding. If you're constantly writing for grants, it's not as effective as if we knew through OSIF or the funding that we would have predictable funding to do this different work. So overall, Mr. Chair, very pleased with the amount of capital projects that are being accounted for. I commend staff for trying to have a trajectory of 2% towards capital over a number of years, keeping in mind that there is only one ratepayer that is paying taxes to different levels of government and so forth, is trying to purchase food and so forth, but it's trying to go in the right direction and not in the wrong direction in terms of doing less capital, because less capital will just result in a further expense later on down the road. So again, confining myself to operations, and I guess other, number 10, I can comment on other things, but from an operational perspective, that would be my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Gervais, for your comments. I'd like now to call on the Chair of Parks and Recreation Committee, Councillor Lafreniere.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I'm not going to repeat everything, but some of my notes did say what, and I won't reiterate what both the Deputy Mayor and the Mayor said. But part of our presentation tonight, recreation services, they do have the biggest cutback potential. However, I'm going to repeat what it said in that report. We need these services to support a healthy, vibrant community. I mean, yeah, it's important to have roads. It's important to have all those other things that we have to provide. But we live in a community that expects a certain amount of recreation facilities. So I think for years, it was the go-to. When we needed to cut money from a budget, it was always recreation that suffered. And we've seen that now in the last few years. A large portion of that funding gap that we see now is because we didn't put money into our recreational facilities, the rinks, the pools. And that's what's getting us in a lot of trouble now. So I think we have to move forward. We can't close all these facilities. We can continue to operate as fiscally responsible as we have been trying to do. So, I mean, nobody likes a tax increase. I mean, I, for one, when I'm done on council, we're on one pension in my household too. So I'm not, wealthy. I understand what it's like to see those increases on taxes, but unfortunately, if we don't fix a lot of these problems now by putting more money in reserve and fixing the facilities we have, what kind of future are we setting our own children and grandchildren up for? So we have to put that money away. We have to bite the bullet. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lafreniere. I'd like now to call on the Chair of Planning and Development Committee, Councillor Jacquineau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the chair of the committee, it's been rather onerous at times, and Councillor Keel, who sits as the vice chair, we meet with the director from time to time, and totally understand her frustration at times of trying to run what she has with a limited budget. And, but I think they do an exceptional job. We can't criticize our staff or the treasurer, this group here. And I'm not looking for any laurels or anything like that. People work very hard. And we've been kind of had our hands tied behind our back with planning and development the last little while. Premier Ford with his new Build Quicker and Faster designation for smaller communities means we're kind of put behind the 8 ball. So before, where you had an area that was zoned R2, R1 or R2, now the designation allows you to take a smaller footprint of a lot and build a large unit. You can build a 6-plex in many instances. So what does that do? What does it do to the neighbors? First of all, it removes the impact on neighbors to appeal to tribunals, saying they don't like that, it doesn't fit in with the neighborhood, which it probably doesn't. But what it does for the community, it provides some additional taxation. We're talking about raising funds to offset our costs. So how do you do that if you don't create new avenues of revenue? It is unfortunate that it has to come to this particular way, but it's happening, and we don't have any choice. You know, the Planning Act restricts us from now, as Councillor Keel will probably understand. But you know, everywhere you look within the city of Pembroke, you see a new development, a new apartments being built. Guess what? They're full. I don't see an empty one anywhere. If you look on Lake Street where they had new buildings, they're sitting right on the river. What a beautiful venue. If you look on Pembroke Street, there was new development where you see all the cars parked on the hill. That's new. If you look in behind, you know, Matheson Drive, you've got all these new buildings. That's new. We're waiting, and I say waiting, for a development from Golfview Developments to take place. It'll include 1,300 units. So where are all these people coming from? I guess that's the question. I'll tell you where they're coming from. A lot of them are exiting the city. They're coming from Toronto. I've got 4 people in my neighborhood, 2 from Ottawa, 1 from Vancouver Island, and another one from Cape Breton. These aren't people who are born in our community. They're coming here because we all complain that the land is too expensive, the houses are too expensive. They're looking at it from the perspective of being in Vancouver Island. So I can't buy a house there, but I can buy a house on Supple Street, a fix-me-upper, and I can fix it, and I'll pay taxes, and I'll be part of the you know, the environment of the community, helping, volunteering, etc. So money in, money out. We have to run a balanced budget. How unfair is that? The federal government, when they run out of loot, they just print more. They say, how much do we need? Well, let's print some more, and we'll give that deficit, our deficit, to the communities to handle. We'll give them a grant. Well, thank you very much. But now we're running our budget by borrowing money. Like if you had to run your household budget on a credit card, that's not good financial planning. So the bottom line is we don't have enough money to do all the projects. We know that. So where do you go? There's only one place to go. It's the taxpayer. They don't want it. We don't have enough funding coming in from alternate sources of government to say that we don't have a credit card debt problem. We can make our commitments. Anyway, negative impacts, you know, with the zoning, it changes the flavor of neighborhoods. People that lived in a beautiful neighborhood where there was, you know, single-family brick dwellings where the children played in the park down the road, those days are gone. And I mean, you know, we try and maintain that to the best of our ability to retain our flavor as a small community, which attracts people here. That's why they come here. Where are all these people coming from? They're coming from our surrounding area as well. People are getting older, they're retiring, they're selling their homes. And I know we have 2 lawyers sitting around the table. I'm sure they could commit to the fact that many of the sales that are taking place aren't just from local people here. They're from people from outside of our area. And why are they doing it? First of all, services. A lot of them can't drive anymore. They're getting older. Closer to the hospital, you can have your medication delivered by the pharmacy right to your front door. You don't even have to go out. So that's what's filling these places, in my estimation, because we are an aging demographic. So I guess we have to be prepared for that. Are we? I think we're getting to the point where we are. The province is growing exponentially in population. There's a lot of immigration taking place. And as I said, we're experiencing an exodus from the cities, retirees, and older people. So they're moving here to be closer to services. As a planning department, we have to be prepared for that. And all these things are part and parcel with recreation. They're looking for things. They just don't want to, sell their house in Montreal and come here and say, oh, you don't have a pool. Well, I had one in Montreal, So I think we're doing our best. And I know it's difficult, but you shouldn't be running part of your budget by borrowing money. That is like having a credit card, not paying your bills, and just having, your credit cards right to the limit. We're not there, but it gives us the ability to borrow. But I don't think that's good financial planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giacono. I will now ask for comments from our remaining councillors. Councillor Keel.
Well, I think a lot of what's already been said has been said. Certainly to anybody watching, and tonight we actually have some people that came down to City Hall, which makes it feel a bit more of a show. But to think that nobody around this table recognizes that a tax increase, especially a near 7% tax increase, has effect, we all know that it does. I own 2 buildings. I have a house in Pembroke, and my law firm has a commercial building in Pembroke that commercial buildings pay even higher taxes, a higher tax rate. We know it's difficult, and certainly anybody that's been on Facebook over Christmas, when I think a lot of people had time on their hands, and a few budget discussions went around the local Facebook groups. We know that it's tough. At the same time, our costs are going up too. The average family talks about the price of groceries going up. For us, it's the price of doing the road that everybody wants paved going up. Inflation, inflation right now, 2.2%. But if you're talking about construction inflation, I don't want to put the treasurer on the spot, but I think we pulled out 8 point some percent is the construction inflation. So the city of Pembroke's not, we're not buying groceries, we're not buying clothes, we're buying other types of goods, and they're going up at a higher inflation than what you see on TV when they talk about the CPI. So right out of the gate, to sort of steal from Councillor Giacono, we're at a disadvantage because the things we're buying are going up at a lot higher rates than the things the average person is buying when you talk about the basket that the CPI is based on. It also, I also find it a little interesting this year that, for many years everybody talked about 2-3% increases. If the city of Pembroke this year did a 0% increase, we would still have 3.12% increase because of the shared services. So before we even touched the budget this year, 3.12 of that 6.9 is outside of our control. So when we talk about a capital increase, 2% of that 6.9 is capital. As the mayor said, that's the capital is going to the roads. The capital is fixing our recreational complexes. And even with that, as the Treasury pointed out, we are actually not spending enough to keep up. We are actually still lagging behind, even with that 2%. City operations, 1.87%. I'm kind of happy with that. That's not a bad operational. That's less than the CPI 2.2%. So really, most of it is going to shared services, which is outside of our control, and 2% to capital, which is something that people certainly have said. We want to see the roads fixed. We don't want a recreational facility to close, as we unfortunately had to do, I guess, 2 budget rounds ago. I'd hate to look at anybody in an inarticulate way, but the only thing that comes to mind is, in some ways, it is what it is, unless we want to start cutting. And then the question that I would have, and I know some residents are going to have the opportunity to speak, I read a lot of Facebook stuff the last couple weeks. Nobody told me what I should cut. They told me the taxes are too high, I'm not going to disagree with them. These tax increases are bigger than any other tax increases we've seen. But not a single comment said what they wanted to exchange for lower taxes. Do we want to go down to one rink? I'm not proposing that. Don't start yelling at me on social media. But you know, $2 million of what we're about to spend is on the PACC and a new floor and new boards. A couple years ago, it was the 1.4 million for the Kinsman Pool refurbishment. So these are big numbers, and I'm happy to hear from residents. I know a lot of residents, you know, like the deputy mayor said, they've been contacting us, and I'll be honest with you, when I ask them, what do you want to cut? They don't know. They just want lower taxes. So I think having a broader conversation is good. Certainly, I did peek a little into the next meeting agenda where the survey is sort of detailed, and you know, there's going to be some tough choices ahead. But if those tough choices are cutting back on capital, that means our roads get worse. That means we shut down recreation facilities. Those are the big expensive things. You know, if sometimes people hit on staff. I can tell you right now, firing one staff member is not going to. You're not going to notice it in your monthly budget. That's going to save pennies. That's not going to save. That's not going to save dollars. So we can have that discussion, and I certainly look forward to it. And I thank the Treasury staff for doing the hard work, which is presenting us with a budget, and all of our department heads, you know, their job is to defend their budget, and certainly over a couple days we heard from them at length. The deputy mayor chairs the finance committee. He's been guiding us along for these 3 days now, and the mayor kind of proposed, legally he had to propose a budget, but I know he worked with Treasury in terms of that. So I certainly thank everyone that got us where we are, but I'm also looking forward to hearing from members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keel. Councillor Purcell?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank Angela Lochte for the Treasury Department for their hard work in compiling the 2026 budget. You're right, and you know, I kind of echo some of the sentiment that I'm hearing around the council tonight in terms of the cost of living is a real concern for this council, and ensuring that we also are meeting our due diligence when it comes to regulatory compliance is also a role of these positions. So it makes it tough in terms of this balancing act. How much is enough money? There's never enough money. Are we impacted? Most definitely we're impacted in terms of the cost of living increases, the CPI. You know, things cost a lot of dollars. The types of initiatives that we undertake are very expensive. They require, you know, assets. They require skilled individuals. They require specialized equipment to perform some of this work. So, you know, looking back, this is my third budget, I guess fourth, I guess. Looking back, I think we've come a long way. I think that, you know, we're looking at the future and not spending for today. We're looking at, you know, the 2% increases in terms of capital spending. One only has to look at Calgary and look at some of the issues that they've got themselves into in regards to deferring maintenance for water projects. Those are costly, they're disruptive to the community, and they don't serve anybody. So the costs are the costs. That being said, you know, the Treasury Department has provided a lot of information. Are willing to work with individuals that are feeling a little overwhelmed when it comes to property tax. So I do appreciate that. You know, we are also looking in terms of different ways. I'm the vice chair for Parks and Rec as well, and you know, we look at opportunities in terms of moving forward and how we're doing things moving forward. You know, we recognize that maybe recreation needs to be looked at as more of a regional approach instead of just a single tier, municipality providing those services. So we've erected the multiplex committee to look at those options. I'm not saying that they're solutions, but they're discussions, and we're looking to see what is the best way to move forward to, address some of the aging infrastructure that we see with our parks and rec facilities, and looking for future development in terms of how we can partner with various different other municipalities. So I got to give credit to this council for that. One of the big implementations this past year was the public transportation. We continue to provide affordable public transportation for people with and without disability. We've actually decreased the cost in terms of a round trip for individuals using our transportation services through our friends at the Handy Bus. And also made it affordable for people to get around town, and that's proving to be very successful. Again, costing the taxpayer 1 cent on the dollar. We're looking at county community shared services and looking at opening up those agreements. We had some discussions at past council meetings in terms of what that looks like. Also looking up our recreation agreements with our neighbors at Laurentian Valley. To make sure that it's fair for everyone utilizing those services. So I think, we're moving in the right direction. I do look forward to, if holding those conversations with individuals. This year is going to be an opportunity to address your concerns on your doorstep when, individual councillors come around looking for re-election or looking for your support for election. So please use that time appropriately. It's a tough job. It is one of these things in terms of the budget is that you really can't satisfy everyone. And, the approach that I do like is if that's what, residents of the city of Pembroke would like to see in terms of reduction of services, then we need to have those discussions in an open and honest, fair manner, and we need to have the information available to us. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the survey. I'm concerned in terms of the amount of people that actually completed the survey. Are we getting true representation in terms of some of those thoughts? So I think we need to do some more work there, but I think, we're moving forward, and I think, this council has been very progressive in terms of looking at user fees, trying to look at, other ways in terms of supporting some of the initiatives that we offer through the city of Pembroke. And, we just need to continue working together and work with each other and not work against each other. And that goes with the residents of the city of Pembroke, with the council. We're here to provide your thoughts, your input. We're here to represent you. So please let us know what your thoughts are, and we can work together to come up and communicate something that's meaningful. So for discussion purposes, to make sure that it meets our needs moving forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Brousseau. I now ask our treasurer if any questions, comments are received from the public.
So I did receive one letter, or one, response via email for our second request for feedback specifically related to this meeting. And that was received from Dylan Longpray. So our question was, what questions or comments do you have about Pembroke's 2026 draft budget? So I won't read the full letter because it is quite lengthy, but I will sort of read the beginning and the end of it. So his response was, at the current trajectory, my family and many others will be forced to consider leaving Pembroke, not because we want to, but because we can no longer afford the cost of staying. So I am a 33-year-old homeowner and father of 3 who moved back to Pembroke 9 years ago, specifically to raise my family here. I could afford to buy a home in Pembroke, but I am increasingly struggling to afford to remain. So he goes on to observe that the operating budget continues to grow without corresponding service level reductions, while the tax burden on residents steadily increases. Like any household or business facing structural constraints, there comes a point where difficult decisions must be made. Studies and deferrals do not reduce costs, they just delay them. So my question is, how is a young family, specifically a 33-year-old father of 3, expected to afford to live within the city of Pembroke if operating costs continue to rise year over year, service levels remain largely unchanged, and meaningful service reductions are not seriously considered. Put more directly, what is Council's plan to ensure Pembroke remains affordable for families who already live here, rather than gradually pricing them out or forcing them into the rental market or out of the community altogether? For example, has Council considered whether Pembroke needs to operate multiple rinks and a pool simultaneously, or whether a temporary consolidation to one rink paired with reinvestment in reserves could be a responsible interim measure? Alternatively, has Council explored contracting certain recreational services, including aquatic services, to one of the private pools maintained within the city, rather than continuing to own and maintain infrastructure the city may not be able to afford long-term? I recognize these are not decisions that can be implemented immediately, but this budget process is one of the only times when the public is explicitly invited to raise questions of affordability, service levels, and long-term sustainability. Thank you for taking the time to consider and respond. So certainly this resident raises some excellent questions. So as I mentioned in my presentation, property taxes is not an income-based tax, and affordability is something that's corrected through the Ontario Trillium benefit for property taxes. I will say that, and this is the Treasurer's personal opinion, not the opinion of Council, but the Trillium benefit does not consider municipal water and sewer rates and the costs of those services to residents, which is something that we've certainly seen increasing significantly over the past 5 years. And we don't have the final results of the new rate study, but I don't anticipate that that's going to change. So certainly I'm considering bringing a report forward to Council in step with the new rate study, to consider asking the Ontario government to potentially include water and sewer charges in addition to property taxes to their Trillium benefit calculation, as a further step that could be taken to ensure affordability to residents within the City of Pembroke and other municipalities across Ontario. I guess the second point to raise is that the Ontario government, the province, is the one who decides who pays for what services are paid for by the province, and what the municipality is responsible for. And as mentioned by our mayor, the city and staff attend a variety of municipal association events and delegations to provincial representatives to continually lobby the province for funding, to include more funding, to include items like homelessness and the encampments that we receive complaints about, and to make our share of services make sense and be affordable to residents. And I know the mayor will be speaking to some of these delegates at Roma, and this is something that we continually do on a number of different levels to try to make the affordability aspect of property taxes something that's known and considered at the Ontario government provincial level. There's certainly some questions about recreation in there, and when it comes to recreation, certainly the position of this council is that recognition that we really can't go it alone with new recreation facilities, because that's not something that's affordable to the City of Pembroke residents alone. And this is the reason why a new pool was not built a few years ago when we had issues. The council at that time had wanted to potentially close the pool for a year to save funds, but that was not until a new facility could potentially be built, but that was not something that was supported by the residents. So there's certainly a push and pull between services that people want and what residents can afford to pay. So the City of Pembroke and Laurentian Valley are working together to develop a facility plan that makes sense for both communities. But unfortunately, working together like this does take time, and I do expect that we'll have more information on this in the next term of council, if not some updated statuses by the end of this one. So in addition to that letter, our budget priority survey also included the opportunity to comment on anything else that would make residents feel they are getting better value for their tax dollars. So there's about 3 pages of comments, so I'm not going to go over them one by one, but I did try to group them into common themes. So certainly there's a desire in the community to review the levels of service the city provides, and this pretty much includes everything. This talks about grass cutting and grass alternatives, yard and waste pickup, tree removal in our parks, transit, the frequency of bylaw enforcement, the status of our roads, how much we salt and sand our roads, sidewalks, winter garbage in parks, traffic signals, road clearing. So I will say that we do get feedback, not just in these exercises, but all of the time. Council gets them all of the time, and we collaborate with each other as we prepare each budget. And we do take all of this feedback into consideration, and we do to try to make improvements when we can, when it's affordable, and when it makes sense. And council also, during budget deliberations, raises some of these concerns to try to correct what we can. We do plan on continuing to engage residents on levels of service for infrastructure in 2026. So we do encourage everybody to participate in these activities, to complete the surveys when they come out, and to ensure everyone's voices are heard. As we'll see, we had less than 200 residents respond to our budget priorities survey that we conducted. And we're certainly looking to have a lot more feedback than that to make sure that it is representative of the sentiment of the entire community. We also received a number of comments about winter road maintenance. So I have asked the operations department to respond to these issues separately because I'm not an expert in winter road maintenance. So they will respond to these questions outside of the public meeting, potentially with more communications and a report. So we'll stay tuned for that. Another issue that was raised was the availability of a public dashboard to better communicate projects and other municipal issues and concerns to residents. So, for example, the city should have a public-facing dashboard showing major spending areas, timelines for capital projects, and progress updates. So we do have some of this information on our website right now. So currently there is a place for infrastructure projects on our website, but we have invested in a new public engagement platform in 2025 called Engage Pembroke. So the budget priorities survey that we conducted is on this new platform. And in 2026, we're going to be looking to roll this out to other departments and have it all in one place. Again, so it'll be easier for the public to find this type of information. So we are working on making that better for residents. Another, I guess, common theme in some of the comments was comparing the City of Pembroke's tax rates and tax levy increases to larger cities like the City of Ottawa or the City of Toronto. So for example, why can't we have a tax increase that is as low as the City of Ottawa? So it is very difficult to compare our small municipality to these larger centers because these larger centers have more growth potential and a large commercial and industrial tax base that pay a higher level of taxes compared to residential. And together that helps pay for services. In comparison, the City of Pembroke is a landlocked municipality. While we do have growth, it is limited. And other than some primarily commercial retail, we don't have a wide array of industrial properties like these larger cities that can take some of the tax burden away from residential properties. So we also, because we're small, we don't have the large economies of scale that a City of Ottawa or Toronto would have. So larger municipalities have like full-time staff dedicated to specific priorities, whereas in smaller municipalities like the City of Pembroke, we require outside consultants for that expertise, which ultimately is more expensive. And as we saw in our capital budget review, the problem the city has now is that we've been trying to keep property taxes affordable for many, many years now, and we've done that by deferring investment in infrastructure, and that's coming back to bite us, I would say. It has officially caught up with us, and we need to be putting more tax dollars into infrastructure to close the funding gap we have. And so that will push us higher than the City of Ottawa or Toronto will be for the next few years. The next, I guess, common theme is comments on the rates of pay for staff and or council, with comments like, no pay raises for staff until the economy settles, or questioning council pay. So it's important for residents to keep in mind that the city needs staff to operate and provide services to residents. So from an operating cost point of view, salaries is our single largest expense. If we have constant staff turnover, it certainly creates, it's inefficient for services and it impacts our ability to provide these services reliably to residents. So we need to hold on to our qualified staff, and to do that, we need to pay them a fair wage. So when we don't pay them a fair wage, we very quickly lose our employees to the competition, and that is other municipalities in our area who love to steal our employees from us. So we do regularly review wages to ensure fairness and competitiveness in the marketplace, and that's our local marketplace. The bulk of our staff is unionized, and we are legally required to respect the terms of our collective agreements with our 2 unions, which have annual pay increases included in these collective agreements. When it comes to council and council pay, it is important for residents to consider that we want anybody on council to be able to run for council. Being a council member requires a significant amount of work, from reviewing meeting materials, attending tons of meetings and community events, and some residents just simply can't afford to do this for free. So ensuring fair compensation to council members opens our council to fair representation, and that's really important to have a healthy democracy in our community. And certainly seeing what we're seeing south of the border right now, healthy democracy is so important, and we can't understate that. Finally, economic development is certainly another common theme in some of the comments, with comments like we need more businesses to support growth and investment. And that has certainly been a priority of council. And the city has been investing in this initiative through its business retention and expansion plan, as well as a new community improvement plan that will be rolling out in 2026. So you can find out more information on these initiatives on the city's website under City Government Plans, Policies, Reports, and Studies. And the Business Retention and Expansion Plan is the first report on this page, if you're looking for more information on that. I guess finally, we have also received comments about homelessness in our community. And I will say that homelessness is a very complex issue because it is the result of a wide variety of root causes, and it's not any one thing that's going to, there's not one solution to fix the issue at the root of, at the heart of homelessness. So solving this issue requires the involvement of a variety of services, not only the city, but the county, the health unit, the city bylaw department, county social services, paramedics, policing, and the province to address. So our CAO did do a very comprehensive report to council on this issue, kind of highlighting all of the different things we are doing to combat homelessness in our community. And that was included as part of the July 15th combined committee agenda. So if you are looking for a copy of this report, just email us at pembroke@pembroke.ca and we can send a copy of that to you. And I will pass it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we will hear from members of the public who have registered to address the Finance and Administration Committee members. I would ask that those who have registered, once I've called your name, to move forward to the podium, state your name and address, and proceed with your comments. I would like to ask Karen Walsh to come forward, list your address, and provide your comments. Thank you, Karen.
It's real close today. Let's just push that back. Good evening. My name is Karen Walsh-Joffrey. I live in the heart of Phase 3 of the Isabella catchment. I haven't been around much to show my face to you guys lately, but it doesn't mean I'm not listening. I'll address a few things discussed in the budget, not necessarily in any order, just observations. It's budget time, and here we are having a 7.89 increase. Last year, 8.92, 2024, 7.9, 2023, oddly 2.95. This year's increase has been expected based on the last 3 years when council started to look forward and not stay stuck in 1973. Unfortunately, we know previous councils were remiss. Notice I'm not saying negligent, as I usually do, in budgeting actual costs to run the city. The increase in 2022 was 1.92%. These budgets did not cover the cost of living, let alone provide for services like infrastructure or rainy day funds. No one needs to get all offended about that either. Just accept the reality and move forward. Councillor Purcell, I know he's mentioned a couple of times, and he's correct in saying we didn't do ourselves any favor keeping increases to 2% for the prior years. The last 3 budgets have dealt with reality kicking in and sticker shock. We're well more than 2%. And as much as I want to keep the rate lower, we are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Getting the Safe Schools grant is good news, adding sidewalks to the neighborhood, but I got to ask, is the city going to be plowing those sidewalks? We know that in 1992, the city scrapped plowing a number of sidewalks to save money, much to the disapproval of then Mayor Les Scott. It's also interesting that these sidewalks are getting put in when it was decided last year that the city would be removing sidewalks in many neighborhoods down to 1 to save money on maintenance and plowing. I guess slip and fall lawsuits are cheaper. As to phase 2 of Isabella Catchment, the crappy asphalt sidewalk, for lack of a better word, on the west side of Moffat Street to Isabella was redone with a concrete sidewalk and curbs, and I'm asking why. If it's not plowed, and according to the plow list it is not, and the city is taking away sidewalks, why would we pay for that expense and not just take out the sidewalk and put in the curb? There's a good sidewalk on the other side. On Isabella, the better concrete side is not plowed and hasn't been for over 30 years. However, the completely unsafe, uneven asphalt concrete mishmash on the south side gets plowed. I'm curious what will happen when phase 3 happens. Will the city remove the better sidewalk or the crappy one? And just as an aside, yesterday, the paramedics were across the street from me at a building which houses mostly seniors. The paramedic had to shovel in order to be able to get into that building. That shouldn't be happening. I am hopeful the 3rd phase of Isabella Catchment gets completed. I know it's expensive, but it has to be done. As according to the city's own documentation, the sewers have outlived their lifespan for many, many years. We, as in my family, have already experienced issues and have had conversations with the city regarding this. As I mentioned last year, postponing doesn't make anything cheaper. Good things that came from your budget discussions. It's a good idea to review the shared agreements, especially when some are 35 years ago. In looking forward, we need to evaluate whether the agreements serve people of Pembroke now in 2026. Things have changed a lot in 30 years. Perhaps reviewing every 5 years, much like we did with the legal services when you guys first started. It's a good idea to rethink things, like a 35-year-old, $1 a year lease like we know the farmer's market has. 35 years for $1 a year? We could have started with 5 and maybe saw how things went if they're making some contribution. It's crazy. Does the city cover the maintenance and the insurance for that? That comes out of our budget. The recreation and the gap between revenue and budget, of course, recreation department shouldn't be making a profit, but it should not keep growing a deficit because we know what happens. It gets out of control and then we end up in a bad situation like the pool and discussing the rinks and stuff now too. Increasing user fees and charging a few dollars more for programs per year is the same as anywhere else. A dollar here, a dollar there. A slight increase to cover costs. Landlords can charge 2% every year. So a dollar here, a dollar there, instead of slapping us with a double-digit increase at tax time. I'm willing to pay an extra $2 if I have to go swimming, right? And I'm a retired person, 1 pension as well. I also have to work part-time to help pay for my house taxes. And we moved here 5 years ago. So the sticker shock after the first year and the second year, it's been quite dramatic. Now let's talk about how do we increase this tax base? What is the city actively doing to bring business to the city? Angela just mentioned some comments other folks had as well. I've asked this question every year. I know you had a position added. I think I asked about it last year for business development and retention and what's happening there. And other people are saying it too. And I say it every year. Our cute little cafes, 1 or 2 candle shops, and even a vape shop that opens, 1 or 2 more businesses close. We have retirements and people are not able to stay open. We need big jobs. We need companies that can employ 100 people, not just 4 people. People who will come and buy homes and pay taxes, increase our tax base. Hey, with all the new proposals for Canadian military, we should be able to hook into something being so close to the base. I'm just saying. Councillor Ian says the same thing I say about subdivisions planned. He said it in the meeting the other day that I listened to. Planned subdivisions, a townhouse costing $600,000? Are you kidding me? Who's going to afford that? What jobs are here to support that? What happened to Golf View Homes? It should be called Ghost View Homes, because I registered and I haven't heard a thing in years. Or La Pointe subdivision, only 2 houses built so far? I drove through there. They're not even finished yet. We do not have the jobs to bring people here and families here to buy these homes and increase our tax base. We have to grow. And with our higher taxes, people are choosing LV or Petawawa. Our population, and I tell you this every time, has not grown in over 50 years. Our demographic is not getting any younger. We seniors are getting taxed out of Pembroke. And I hate to bring up GTA in Ottawa, but yeah, I mean, I had a GTA property. I'm paying way more taxes than I did there. And again, I'm retired now. So again, what is the city actively doing to bring jobs and people here? I get when our CAO says Pembroke is unique, and that's what's so great about it. But our uniqueness should not be taxing people out of Pembroke. I felt the frustration when it was that the city is trying to put together a budget without all the information from the county or partners or even confirmed grants. How do we put together a budget when we don't have all the information? There should be some kind of coordination of budget timelines. Guesstimates aren't good when you're telling me I'm going to get increased taxes. Okay, enough of my whining and complaining there, but lastly, and just some FYI stuff. It is a census year, so it will be interesting to see the population and the demographic, because we need growth to survive here. We can't shrink anymore. I live across from a funeral home, right? And I made the joke before, every time I see a funeral there, well, there's another taxpayer gone, and we're not necessarily getting them replaced. We need the growth to survive, if we even want to think about thriving, but surviving we'll start with. Troy also commented on, and I found this very interesting, City of Calgary has 2 class action suits being brought against them for negligence for not providing appropriate maintenance on infrastructure and sewers for over 50 years. I find that very interesting, living here, and especially right in the heart of Phase 3 of Isabella Catchment. But more importantly, at the end here, is it's an election year. It's important for the constituents of Pembroke to pay attention and to vote. Last election saw 18 candidates, and only 10% of the qualified voters voted. Only 2 new councillors. We need some fresh approaches to move Pembroke forward into 2026 and beyond. Be informed. Remember, things can't change if they don't change. Thank you. Lovely to see you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you very much. I'd like now to ask if there's any other non-registered participants who'd like to come to the podium. Yes? Welcome. Please state your name and address, and welcome.
My name is Elise Fouise. I live on McGee Street in Pembroke. I don't have a whole lot to say, and I don't even know where to start. I've been making notes and going through everything that I printed off today, and it's just very overwhelming. And again, reiterating much of what was said tonight, you know, going back at the last number of tax increases and going, holy cow, how am I going to afford this moving forward? I live by myself. I have 2 children at home. They are adult children, but one's on ODSP. The other one's just starting his career and attending trade school and those kinds of things. So it's just me. And just with, you know, with everything, the cost of groceries, the cost of heat, hydro, everything going up. When you see another increase like that from the city, it just, you want to scream and yell at somebody because it's like, you're frustrated, right? Absolutely. Councillor Keel said earlier that he was on Facebook over the holidays and saw all these comments from all these people about things, you know, Pembroke this, Pembroke that, the taxes are too high. I came here tonight early thinking, okay, there's going to be lots of people here, right? Because it's a budget meeting and everybody's outraged with how much the increase is going to be. And there are 5 of us here. Like, okay. You guys, like, again, I used to volunteer years ago. I lived in the Laurentian Valley, okay? I would get people come to me complaining all the time. You don't do this, you don't do that, you don't do this. Okay, I volunteer my time away from my family to come here and do this for you. And you're going to sit there and complain. If you want to help me, by all means, come on in. Give me a hand, right? But no, nobody wants, like you said, to give you the solution. Nobody wants to give their opinion. Nobody wants to take the time out of their schedule, out of their life, to come here to say what needs to be said, right? Everybody always compares how come Laurentian Valley's taxes are so much lower than Pembroke? Well, okay, Parks and Recreation for a prime example. In Laurentian Valley, and I'm not dissing Laurentian Valley, please, I'm, okay, not at all, but volunteer-based, okay? They don't have city works guys that are being paid phenomenal wages, plus benefits, plus overtime, plus, doing the rink or mowing the grass. They have the volunteer from down the street cleaning the rink and mowing the grass. Okay? So yeah, they're saving oodles of money because they're volunteers. In the city of Pembroke, I can't remember going to an event, and I don't go out at all anymore because I just can't afford it. But where it was mainly volunteers. You know what I mean? Like, what happens in the city of Pembroke that's done bulk by volunteers? No funding from the city. No funding from the city. Right? Not very much. Not very much. And everybody's on Facebook going, oh, we need a cinema, and we needed this. And okay, well, go open one. Use your money and go open it. Why are you looking for the city to open a cinema? That's not your job. That's not my job to pay for a cinema. That's Joe Blow that lives behind you or down the street from you that, you know what I mean? That's a person job. They're supposed to open that, not the city of Pembroke. So, again, I looked through the numbers and yes, you know, there's council admin allowances and there's, you know, legal fees for this and that. And I'm like, okay, I'm not understanding. But again, those are things that, you know, like members of council legal fees at $10,000. Okay, well, I don't know what that's for. The other thing is there anywhere in here that shows any back tax money that's owing to the city of Pembroke? Like, I happened to just leaf through it, but I didn't see anything. But I know for a fact that there are people out there that owe lots of money to the city for back taxes. And the city's not collecting it. I don't know. I could be on that list someday, so I don't want to say too much because that might be me in another few years when I can't pay my taxes. One of the big things that I think needs to happen is you need to stop spending. I get you need to spend on stuff, okay? Our infrastructure, are those things. But all this extra spending, and I'm sorry, the transit thing, I'm not a fan of. I'm so not a fan of. But anyways, that's another topic. You're bleeding, and you need to put a Band-Aid on it, and you need to stop spending on things that you don't need right now. We need infrastructure, we need roads fixed, we need those things. Okay, spend on that. Stop spending on the other stuff. Like Ian said, go down to one rink if you have to. I'm sorry, I'm not a hockey person. Hockey Canada, Hockey Town. Okay, go down to one rink. If it means saving us money, saving the city money, in the long run, you'll benefit. But for right now, you know what I mean? You need to look at those things and look at where you can cut those things because, I don't know, like I said, it could be me on the chopping block someday because my taxes aren't paid. Anyways, that's my rant, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Madam Treasurer?
So I will say that the outstanding taxes is part of the city's audited financial statements, if you're looking for that information. So under the Ontario regulations, the city can register a property for tax sale if they fail to pay more than 2 years worth of taxes. So we do go down that road when needed, but we do first try to work with our ratepayers to come up with payment plans because really a tax sale is a method of last resort, and we do want to keep people in their homes, and if they need more time to pay, that is something that we work with ratepayers on a kind of a one-on-one basis. But if you are looking for that information, it is on our website under our financial audited statements and budgets page.
Anyone else would like to speak? Okay, thank you. Final comments by members of the committee. I'll call Mayor Gerby first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So earlier I was trying to limit comments to operations, but we've gone around, and I'm trying to minimize certain comments, and I'm trying to not be redundant, but there's certain things that certainly should be said. So just very high level, because I don't want to be remiss in thanking staff, because I know that there's an awful lot of time put into it before council even sees the budget. I want to ensure that this is, I'm hitting someone over the head with this one, but what was said earlier is certainly as per the memo that went out to council. Yes, it's a mayor's budget, but there seems to be a lot of confusion out there. This was a budget that, yes, I reviewed, but it came to council, and as per past practice, we as a council went over this budget and came forward with it. I would comment that if someone's looking for comparables, and I do this every year, so if you look at other lower tier municipalities, you need to realize whenever they blow their trumpet and they say, yeah, we did X percent, they're not normally providing you with the fact that there's also a county element that they're leaving out, and you need to compare those two together to look at what it is that they are paying in those municipalities. If you're looking for more comparators, we belong to Eastern Ontario Mayor's Caucus, and the municipality I look to all the time is the city of Brockville, which is a single-tier municipality, has similar situations in terms of having municipalities around it and having to have a relationship in terms of ambulance and other services, as was mentioned by our treasurer. Say it every year, is that when looking at our rates and so forth, is that, and it's been said this evening, so I'm not just going to keep pounding on it, but it's not just a matter of, Councillor Keel said it well, in terms of it's not just what we're trying to accomplish, but it's also looking at things that are beyond our control, which is so the Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery, policing, insurance, county shared services. Those are things that, yes, we have representation, and yes, we have input and so forth, but we don't control what they're necessarily going to come out with the rates. Having said that, sometimes it's not entirely possible to match up our budget process, trying to match the Premier's, Greater Mayor Power's budgets, and trying to match that timeline and what it is that the county is doing or others. And so we're doing the best that we can, and the province in their own good time tells us when they're going to provide a grant or not provide the grant, as the case may be. Commented at budget time, but I'll say it again, is that when we utilize reserves or we utilize surpluses, that is taxpayers' dollars. We've said it before, but it's just to hit it over the head. It is taxpayers' dollars that we are utilizing. It got put away, whether it be in a contingency fund or what have you. We're just simply using tax dollars. It's not gifted money or something that fell out of the sky or anything like that. Already commented on that. To state the obvious, that, and it's been said this evening, is that in terms of a municipality, we, like the county and like other municipalities, are trying to do the right thing, strike a balance in terms of ability to pay, but at the same time achieve a level of service that people are looking for. I already commented about operations under operations, although I didn't intend on doing that this evening through there. And I agree with one of the representation from one of the residents, as Mayor LeMay always used to say, you got to grow the tax base, and we are trying. We're trying to spend more money in terms of economic development, trying to get more businesses here, looking business retention and expansion to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and so forth. I don't know that we'll ever see a day when Stellantis or something is coming to Pembroke. I don't think that that's a reality, but our niche seems to be retail, and seems to be larger retail, and so that's where the efforts are spent. Again, just wish to thank staff for all of the work, because I know I've seen people in here on weekends and so forth when I'm coming and going, and evenings, and so kudos to you for trying to set it up so that we can, as a council, can review it and work our way through it. So Kudos to you. It's certainly an awful lot of effort put into it.
Thank you, Mayor Sherby. Councillor Jacquino?
I said my bit, thank you.
Councillor Keel?
So I don't want to repeat what was said before. I do want to thank Karen and Elise, neither of whom I can actually see, for coming in and for our other attendees. It's really strange, and I can only presume that some other councillors will agree with me. A lot of this job is done in a complete vacuum, without any feedback, without any questions. You might go weeks and someone will bump into you while you're shopping or something like that. And then all of a sudden you get budget, and Facebook erupts, and the emails and the phone calls erupt. The pool needs a new roof, the community erupts. But all of that is to say, for the 5 of you that did come tonight, I thank you for coming. For the people that were commenting on Facebook, even though I tell myself to stop reading Facebook, I can't help myself, and I was watching them, and you are heard. Somebody here tonight, I think, said, we can't make everybody happy, and that's true. I didn't come on council to raise taxes by 7% a year. I can tell you right now, I was salivating over that first budget to go at it and cut here and cut that, because I'm a new councillor and we're just going to cut things. And I went through the entire budget, and I think I shaved off about $6,000 in a $20-some million budget. I mean, we do run a pretty tight ship. When we're talking about not paying staff, I can tell you right now, more so than what the treasurer said, is right now we're poaching amongst our local selves left, right, and center, and we're not the only ones that have staff being poached to a different municipality, and we don't do a better job with unskilled, untrained new people. It's good to keep those people that we have, and you don't just have to pay them a living wage, you have to pay them a wage that competes with them not hightailing it out of here. In terms of recent staff, we do have our new investment and attraction officer in economic development. She's doing an absolutely amazing job. We get reports at the Economic Development Committee about her contacts. I can't say certain things because they're in our closed sessions, but we've had interest in municipal properties about businesses wanting to come in. Those are things that you don't see at the start when we're talking about selling land and negotiating about land sales and stuff, but that's an ongoing process. I would like us to to take a look at growth, because certainly adding a new residence and getting those tax dollars is better for us, because that means the pool's bigger, and there are certain subdivisions. The deputy mayor and the CAO and I have a delegation to discuss unbuilt and stagnant subdivisions with one of the ministers at Roma this weekend / next week. So yeah, it would be good for us to have new builds. Growth would be the easiest way to expand our tax dollars without expanding our tax increases. And certainly I was going to say I hope council joins me in that, but I think we've been quite clear that we would like to see more growth instead of higher taxes. So thank you, Elise and Karen, for your words. Certainly, there's nothing either one of you said that was wrong. It's a matter of juggling things, and yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But thank you for coming, and thanks for those that do participate, and the people that commented in the budget survey.
Thank you, Councillor Keel. Councillor Frenier?
Thank you. Thank you to those who came out and those who spoke. It's a learning curve for new councillors that come here, and I'm sure both Councillor Purcell and like Councillor Keel said, when you're sitting back and you're not involved in the budget process and you're not aware of other things, it's easy to say, let's cut this or let's cut more. But then everything is attached to something else. So what I'm getting at is some people might say, let's close the library or let's get rid of, let's get rid of this because there's so much. Well, the library means so much more to to many people. Just because you don't use the library, there's other things that have to be considered. Or like Laurentian Valley runs on volunteers. Yes, maybe. But maybe they don't have the guidelines we have to follow, because I know that years ago we ran Waterfront Festival on hundreds of volunteers. Well, since then, the rules around engaging volunteers have changed dramatically. There's a whole training, liability, there's expenses to that as well. So yes, the volunteers have gone down. We do have events that are run primarily by volunteers, but they're not our events. They're things like Busker Fest, a multicultural festival. We do support it because there's things the city has to do. We can't have volunteers going and moving barricades downtown and things of that nature. But okay, so we do give them money, some money to support the events. So we could cut those too, I guess. Some people could consider that's extra money, let's not give them that 10,000 or 50,000. But then that doesn't bring money into the downtown core and the businesses as well, because that's tourism and that's telling people, like, look at our wonderful community. So I hear what you're saying, though. I don't like my taxes going up either. But what do you cut? And that's when I'm now going to say, I invite people who really think they can make a change. Next year's election, put your name on a ballot. Come in. I mean, we've talked about it. And I mean, this budget was hard. And I did broach that topic. Maybe it's time we looked at service levels. But when we started looking, these are the services people want. So if you want to run for election and say you're going to close this and you're going to close that, well, good luck. Because yes, there are people that want to save money in their taxes, but they don't want to do without it either. So it is a really hard situation. Now, the gentleman that wrote the letter, that is a sad situation. He says he bought a home in Pembroke 9 years ago because he could afford a home. Well, a lot, unfortunately, has taken place since he purchased that home in Pembroke. It's not just the taxes in Pembroke that have gone up. Groceries are ridiculous. I can't imagine clothing three children nowadays. Everything has gone up. So I can imagine the pressure on a young family. Now everything's going up. I do agree with the treasurer, though, in looking at including water and sewer rates in that Trillium grant that families can apply for to subsidize, and get that tax rate. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But I want to remind people that those expenses like groceries and other things are going up everywhere. And their taxes are going up too. Our neighboring municipality this year, and I'll mention it, Laurentian Valley, I believe, is 7.2, and that's without the county increase. And their water also is going up about $100 some a year. So, I mean, they're going up too. And I want to remind people that at least we have very affordable hydro, and that will offset. You want to move to the neighboring communities and get Hydro 1, your hydro is going to almost double. It's going to double monthly. So there's things like that I want to remind people that, yes, our costs are going up to run the city, but we still have some affordability options to staying in Pembroke. So your bills are going to go up whether you move or not. And unfortunately, you got to work with us. So run for council. Send us your ideas before we finish the budget. So anyway, thank you. And yeah, it's just the way it is.
Thank you, Councillor Frenier. Councillor Purcell.
Thanks, Chair. Not to reiterate what was already said, but I just wanted to say thank you to the participants tonight for, speaking up and, demonstrating their commitment to their community and bringing forward, some of the opportunities and concerns that they feel are valuably heard and understood moving forward. You talked a little bit about volunteerism, Lise did. Yes, volunteerism is drying up. It's unfortunate. And I think it's probably also because of the cost of living. Individuals figure kind of go, why would I need to volunteer my time when I can work part-time to make ends meet? So we truly understand that. Even our friends at Laurentian Valley, I know whenever they dismantled the haunted trail, they had very difficult time in terms of getting volunteers. So, it's a tough go. Pat said it great, that volunteerism right now requires a lot of regulatory requirements in terms of training. So you have to make sure that those individuals are trained and appropriate to what they do. And that's just, to limit some of the liabilities that we have to limit here as a municipality running the types of events that we do. That being said, I know that our CAO has been looking at, establishing a volunteer corps. So that has been some good news that, I think, that'd be very, very important kind of moving forward, just to kind of see how we can, coordinate, collaborate, so that we can, make these events a little bit more palatable for not only the individuals that are actually, providing the event, but also to make it a little more palatable for our ratepayers when they're funding it. We built those strategic partnerships. Those are very, very important. We have to fund those strategic partnerships. We need to build those strategic partnerships. So I think it's one of the things that I'll be looking forward to do this year, is to try and see how we can kind of work more closely together, and instead of duplicating some of the offerings, maybe, identify where there is duplication and maybe offer something very unique. So I've heard that, and I think that's one thing. Reducing, in terms of, facilities. I mean, that's going to be a discussion that we're going to have in terms of our long-term plans, and we're looking at that multiplex committee as well. And I'm sure it's going to spill over to all recreation in terms of what that looks like moving forward. So we hear you. Do we have all the answers right now? No. Are we moving in the right direction? I think so. I really do think so. Is it going to take a lot of work? Yes, it will. We do require more engagement from our community, though. We really need more engagement. I was expecting maybe a little bit bigger of a crowd here tonight as well. It's unfortunate, but my neighbor flags me down, or other individuals, and they say, "Hey, this is ridiculous, the 7%." Well, come, please let's help you understand in terms of where these dollars are being spent. And similar to Councillor Keel, I came in, looking at opportunities to cut, and then when you start pulling on those strings, as Councillor Fernier says, there's a lot of ties, there's a lot of interconnections, and if we want to do that, then I think we really need to kind of put some focus teams together. I would suggest in the next council year, to put some focus teams together and really kind of drill down in terms of getting more information when it comes to the types of services that we're offering, and see if there is any opportunity. And is there value? If there's no value or no opportunity, then, we move forward, right? And I think that's the best thing to do. But I think it's time that we did an inventory, really kind of looked at the users, what's giving us the biggest bang for our buck, what could we afford now, and what we can afford in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you. Closing remarks. I want to thank the two of you for presenting. Thank you very much. We appreciate your concerns, and we hear you. We want to thank those who attended tonight, everyone who contributed online to the survey and Facebook, and contacted all the councillors, council members, and the mayor and myself. And we want to thank the staff again for the big job. Just a couple notes. I had an email from a resident about the budget, and I mentioned to him that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario has asked the province to provide more OPP funding for service hubs like Pembroke, as we are the main service centre with the regional hospital, county and Renfrew services. And that's one thing we'll be looking forward to when we meet with the Attorney General, Councillor Keel and I, and the CAO, when we're at the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference this weekend. We also, as councillors have mentioned, we also need to have more tools from the province so we can get more housing starts, because that's where we get our taxes, right, from property. And we have Golfview and some other subdivisions that are not moving. And so we're meeting with the Minister of Housing to ask for some tools to incentivize developers to help us build and get the taxes. The only sources that, as the treasurer mentioned, for revenue is property tax, user fees, and new growth. And as we all mentioned tonight, we need new growth. I've always said that in order to attract new residents to Pembroke, and our population has gone up in recent years, we need to have a safe and welcoming community, a vibrant business community downtown. And how do you do that? Well, people coming to Pembroke, they want good roads, they want good water and sewer, they want good recreational facilities, beautiful parks, festivals, and that's how you get residents to come to a community. And we're working on that, and yes, we can do better. There's more to do. There's some tough decisions to be made. But there's no easy solution, as we say. And times are tough, and they're going to get tougher. And I encourage people to look at the AMO website, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and look at their social and economic proposals that they want from the province to redo the whole funding model that the province has. All these programs that were downloaded years ago, they've all caught up to us. And now the province is relying on the homeowner to pay for those services. The province has more economic streams than we do, income tax, land transfer. And it's not sustainable. And as their presenters said, I totally agree with you. I told when I emailed the resident, I said, I'm not happy with the budget increase, but we have to balance safety and liability and help it to get economic growth through increasing the community improvement plan. And it's a tough relationship, and I do realize that. And there's no easy solution. Homelessness is a huge challenge. Mental health, drug addiction, and being the center of the Ottawa Valley, we have those more than other outlying communities have because we're the hub. And the county increase 3.12%. We weren't counting on that. We thought it would be below 3%. And we have to get that down. And we need to work with the county. And it's going to take a while because it's a societal challenge, right? How do you get drug addiction and homelessness decreased? It's a long-term societal thing. But fortunately, we have good partners with the county, the MESA program, the regional hospital, and it's going to take a while. But we keep doing what we're doing and do what we're doing and work ahead. And like I said, it's not going to be sustainable, but we have a budget that, as Councillor Purcell and Keel said, like when I became a councillor in 2018, I thought, we're going to do this, going to do that, and then we cut. And then you realize, well, the library, we fund the library $620,000 a year. So do we take $100,000 from them and affect all the education and all the wonderful programs they do? Or do we take money from here? So there's going to be some tough decisions to be made. And, we talk about a sports flex down the road, but that's only going to happen if we get funding from the government. We don't have enough funds ourselves to build that. So that's going to take regional approach, like we say, long term. Everything in one place will save $1, but for recreation, we have to maintain what we have and plan for the future. So I want to thank everyone for coming, and I'll make myself available anytime for anybody who wants to contact myself or the mayor or any council member. Go to our city website, pembroke.ca, all the information's there. And there's no easy solution in running a municipality. Thank you. If you wish to be notified of the Finance and Administration Committee's decision, please leave your name, address, and postal code with the staff members right here in the room. I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Keel, seconded Councillor Lafreniere. Those in favor? Carried. This Finance and Administration Committee public meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Evening, everyone. I'd like to call the special council meeting to order for January 13th. I would ask those who wish and those who can, please stand for an opening prayer or reflection. Before opening this meeting of council, I would ask those who wish, each in your own way, silently join in prayer or guidance over these proceedings. Thank you. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in relation to this special council meeting? Seeing none, turn it over to staff. Overview of current draft budget.
Thank you. So as we saw, our budget currently sits at a 6.99% levy increase, and this was after the vote on December 16th to reduce the levy impact by 1% using the levy stabilization reserve. So since deliberations, contract negotiations are, I guess, on the cusp of being concluded, and you should see a report on this at next week's on next week's agenda regarding the collection costs for recycling from non-eligible sources. So with this contract based on a per stop fee, the annual 2026 collection cost for non-eligible sources is expected to increase. Originally, we had budgeted $19,800, and currently our estimate is $104,000. So given the significant increase in costs, it is now recommended that we introduce a new recycling collection fee in 2026 as part of the city's final tax bill. So this doesn't have an impact on the bottom line because what we get charged, we will recover in a fee. So overall, the levy impact would remain 6.99. So what we're doing is we're swapping out using reserves for a fee. So we will discuss this more. So I'm just waiting for some final stop information, which I believe we received today. And I will work with staff to try to develop a cost per unit and bring that to council for approval. So the fallback position is if council's not supportive of that or wants to do a combination of a fee and reserves, like if we want to kind of phase it in over a few years, that'll be something that we'll talk about as part of the meeting. But overall, our levy increase in the budget will still be 6.99%. So it's just a question of how are we going to fund this 104,000? When it was 19.8, using reserves for that didn't seem like a big deal, but I think because we're in the over $100,000 cost, it's certainly something we'll have to revisit. So I believe operations is bringing a report forward related to the contract itself at the next budget meeting, and then in either February or March, I'll bring back a report on some options in terms of what we might want to do in terms of a fee for that one to add to commercial properties. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up. And okay, so other than that, so this is just for council to accept this report as information. Again, with a more detailed report to follow related to the non-eligible sources issue. Also, sorry, did you want to chime in on anything there?
Well, I was just going to mention that there will be no report for the next week from the operations department.
Okay, so that will, okay, so the contracts discussions are still ongoing. Okay, so the next, I guess not written in the report is I have followed up with the county. So currently the county, they're still deliberating their budget, so it's still not a final number. So we won't see that till the, I think, end of the month, beginning of the next month, because they still have to break that down between the two parties. But it is looking like county is going to be coming in lower. Right now, the land ambulance is not showing an increase. And I believe one of the other categories isn't as big of an increase as we expected, which I think is homes for the aged. The flip side to that is I did not budget for any reconciliation adjustments for the OPP. And as we know, we are having to absorb an unplanned $400,000 into this year's budget. So, my position is that we just leave it the way it is, thinking that, they'll wash out between each other, because I do expect to see another reconciliation adjustment that we'll have to manage. So just wanted to pass that along, that I still don't have final numbers from the county. So our budget right now is based on estimates from December. So if you do see some discrepancies between the two reports, that's, because their deliberations are ongoing right now. And so that concludes my report, unless there's any further questions, and I'll pass it back to our mayor.
Any questions for Madam Treasurer in respect to overview of current draft budget? Seeing none. Next item up is proposed rate impacts and tax ratios.
So, as we do every year, we need to talk about our tax ratios for the 2026 tax year. Sorry, I think we skipped one, but you want me to?
Yes. My apologies, Madam
Yep.
Treasurer.
Do we want to just continue on with the tax ratios and go back, or do you want us to?
Perhaps we can just keep it in the order, and
Okay.
I apologize for that. So if you can deal with the engagement survey, and then my apologies.
Sorry, we're just sharing the screen. Okay, so this report is meant to be received for information purposes, to review the results of the budget survey. To obtain feedback from the public related to the city's 2026 budget, we conducted an online survey from November 27th to January 4th, 2026. The survey provided residents with a brief description of the budget process and the intent of the survey. The survey started with asking what type of resident they are and their age group, followed by 5 questions regarding different service areas. So 82% of the respondents, that's clicking through. 82% of the respondents were full-time residents, property owners, and 14% were full-time residents, renters, and each age group was pretty fairly represented. We asked how satisfied the respondent was with the overall value received from city services in relation to property taxes and user fees. So as mentioned during the public meeting, 42% are either very dissatisfied or dissatisfied. 37% were neutral, and 20% were either satisfied or very satisfied. The second question asked about the preferred approach to manage levels of service with tax rates and user fees. 40% chose to reduce service levels to keep taxes fees from increasing. 27% chose to keep services at current levels, increase taxes and fees as needed to maintain them, and 15% chose to increase service levels even if taxes or fees go up. We then asked their preference for user fees versus tax rates to support services that directly benefit individual users. 40% prefer a higher user fee, while 42% prefer a mix of user fee increases and some additional tax support, and 11% prefer more tax support to keep user fees down. We asked the respondents to identify the best way to communicate with them, which, as we can see here, it still requires us to use various types of media to ensure information is available to all residents. The next section of the survey looked at potential levels of investment. So we provided various service delivery areas within the roads, parks and recreation facilities, and other city departments. And respondents were able to choose whether the city should invest a lot less, a little less, keep it the same, invest a little more, or a lot more for each service listed. So for each service delivery in the roads department, around half of the respondents proposed maintaining funding in most areas. 60% suggest investing a little or a lot more for pothole and crack repairs. 40 to 45% suggest investing a little or a lot more in sidewalk repairs and new sidewalks. For each service delivery in the Parks Department, between 50 and 66% of respondents wish to maintain current funding. About a quarter of the respondents identified a need to increase investment into neighborhood parks, paths, general upkeep, and accessibility improvements. Around 46% would like to see increased investment in youth programming and 32% in each of the adult and senior programming. About 40 to 52% wish to keep current investment sports facilities with 23 to 35 choosing to increase investment. So we chose a few other city services. 40% chose to keep bylaw and parking enforcement the same. 35% would like to see increased investment in communications with residents, and 50 to 60% would invest more in attracting new businesses and supporting local businesses. And then we also asked what they believe the top 3 priorities that should be addressed are, as well as offered an opportunity for them to suggest other ways that they feel they would be receiving better value for their tax dollars. So this is just a breakdown of their responses to their top 3 priorities. And then in the other suggested priorities included sportsplex, gym, social supports, transit, active transportation, water, wastewater plant, and water tower upgrades. We will continue to engage with the public to help inform our asset management and budget priorities. Upcoming surveys are planned with potential questions to include locations of new sidewalks, preferred road condition based on road type, road condition and ability to pay, adequacy of current garbage and recycling services, and priority setting on the recreation master plan. So as we continue to engage with public, we intend to increase participation with the Engage Pembroke platform for residents to follow projects and provide feedback. And we'd like this engagement to be ongoing and consistent. We will be looking at doing a more formal launch of the Engage platform across all departments over the next year. And we'd look at keeping surveys open longer and promoting them in other areas, perhaps at various events. Thanks.
Is there any questions or comments? Councillor Purcell?
I guess my only question or comment is in regards to just the participation levels in terms of the survey, which, can skew some of the information that we get. But I think it's, it's a good start. I think we need to kind of dive a little bit deeper and get a little bit more participation from our residents to truly understand, any opportunities that we may see in terms of service delivery changes. I think that's my only comment. Thank you.
Councillor Jacquinot?
I'd agree with that statement, Mr. Mayor. You can take one of those numbers off because I was one of the participants as well. So my interpretation might have been a little skewed, having been on council, but I think it's a step in the right direction. Public engagement, know what they want, and as one of the presenters said tonight, she thought the place would be full of people. Everybody's complaining that we're doing the wrong thing, we're raising tax, but where's the outcry? Are we doing the right thing, or are we just, people have become empathetic to things and saying, what's the point? Maybe that's the point. I hope that isn't correct, but I think the survey is a good tool. The more people get engaged, the more we'll have, so that we can, guide our own issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Well, I want to thank staff for doing the survey. It's important to have community engagement. Would like to see more participation, but maybe next time get more participation. People do phone us and can contact us elsewhere, and social media. So, but I want to publicly thank those who did the survey. Thank you.
Keel?
Do we have any budget or anything to incentivize our participation methods? Like offering a prize or anything to try and incentivize it?
So the administration budget does have a small advertising and promotion, so we do use that to advertise due dates and that kind of thing, but we would have a small, probably could hive off small to do some kind of gift card for downtown dollars or something like that, if that's thought to be helpful.
Okay. I think, generally speaking, and I'll wait till we're into, I was about to say next year, but next year is this year. I think maybe if we were to do this a little sooner so that we had this at the beginning of budget, maybe if we have, like, if there's certain events in the fall or whatnot, that we might be able to engage people in person maybe, and have some physical surveys, or I don't think we have any iPads or anything, at least that I'm aware of, but generally speaking, I do like this. I think I think there were some technical questions that I did offer my thoughts on earlier, and I'm not going to go back into those. Just some of the wording of the questions and whatnot. My political science degree kind of came back and I couldn't help myself. Generally speaking, I mean, I'll come right out and say it. I'm feeling pretty good about the survey because I have been pushing for more user fees, and that was one of the mix of tax and user fees on its own were the two categorically selected choices. So I do feel pretty good about that. And the interesting thing, and we've kind of been hitting on this, and Councillor Jacquinot just hit on it as well, is when people tell you they're outraged, but then when you ask them multiple questions, in the response to roads, parks, recreation facilities, investment levels, most of them has basically balanced out between just stay the status quo when you look at their responses. So they're outraged, but they want us to keep doing what we're doing. And it's not unheard of to find that when you drill down in surveys that someone's top emotions are different from their actual responsive answers. So I do find that quite interesting because I kind of went through it and I was like, well, you're balanced, you're balanced. There's a few, and ironically, I only really found parking enforcement, I think, is the only one that actually skewed to be like, do less of it. Everything else was kind of balanced, stay the same, or actually increase at a time when they're also telling us our taxes are too high. So again, I think it's a good survey question. I would like to see more of this throughout the year. And yeah, I mean, job well done from my perspective. I kind of like the results though, so perhaps a survey bias.
Lafreniere?
Yes, through the chair, I just wanted to know, like, when we send out the cards for people to vote, are we allowed to send something with it? Because maybe we need to send out a survey at the same time we do and ask them to either, send it in. Maybe they could go online when they're voting and do it, or hand it in if there's an in-person, drop it off at City Hall before elections. And I think we need to do something like that right at election time because people are thinking about the issues. They're thinking about what they want. They're thinking about what type of leadership they want around the table. So I think we need to get more numbers, like basing decisions on 200 people. That's right. It's the flavor of the day maybe, People are frustrated with everything right now. Like I said earlier, groceries, everything's going up. But hit them at election time. I think that's when people really will stop seriously and think, okay, what do I want to see them cut, if anything? But can we do a mail out is my thing with the election through you.
Yeah, through you, Chair. It's a great question and a good idea. However, you're only entitled to add like one question to a ballot, and it's a whole process through the Elections Act. You have to submit it, so on and so forth. So unfortunately, unless it's one question, you can't actually send out a survey with an elections ballot. So through the Chair, unfortunately, that avenue would not be available unless it was one specific question we were wanting to put on the ballot.
I didn't mean, sorry, if I could just clarify, I didn't really necessarily mean the ballot. Can we do a mail out that has a survey and a ballot separate?
Not that I know of, because the ballot is only for your code, and it's mailed out to specific eligible voters who have registered. So that, in my knowledge of the Elections Act, wouldn't be feasible, but it's not to say we can explore other mail-out options.
Or do a mail out 2 weeks before election or something?
Yeah, it just
Okay.
wouldn't, through my, again, through my knowledge of the Elections Act, wouldn't actually be allowed to be included with the ballot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and just from the chair, I do appreciate the effort to do the engagement, but I think it's what Councillor Keel is saying is one of your points was how you reach out to the different individuals. Councillor Keel could verify that with the business retention and expansion, Ms. Sutherland sometimes had to reach out to the individuals that she knew and call upon the volunteers that were engaged in that survey to reach out to the people that you knew to not strong arm them, but encourage them to complete the interview and so forth. And so, short of doing that sort of thing to emphasize that they need to complete it, so whether it's at Showcase or whatever, but it's more or less, you do need to complete this survey if you want to pass my table. Short of doing something like that, we all live, I'm guilty of it as well. Well, we're all living busy lives and so forth, and it's like, do I want to do another survey? And so short of being at the right place, right time, and strong-arming individuals in the public to comment, this is what you get, and it's not any slight against staff. That was even the business retention, process. And when you see 158, and if you've taken any statistics courses, you go, so okay, it's nice information, but is it totally of assistance given the low turnout? But that's not a slight against staff. It's just that going forward, if there's a way of, whether it's Showcase, it's our snow spree, it's our whatever event, and yes, it would have to be open longer and strong arm individuals to complete it, and it is what it is to get, and it's unfortunate, but short of the one solace I take is that if, as a council, you made a decision that is extremely unpopular, and we saw that with the pool, you will hear. But short of that, I think it's the camp that Councillor Keel is saying is that it seems to balance out, and so people are upset, but they seem to be also not bad with the status quo. Not perfect, but So having said that, unless there's any additional comments, now we can finally move to proposed rate impacts and tax ratios.
So thank you. So every year we do have to have a discussion on the tax ratios for the tax year. As mentioned, assessment values continue to reflect the 2016 base year. So property assessment values in Pembroke used for property tax billing will be the same as 2025 unless there were changes made to the property. So in 2025, the city start and revenue neutral tax ratios are the same. So this is something that we will likely need to analyze more once the Ministry of Finance kind of activates MPAC to do a reassessment. So far, there has been no word of that. I do know there's a review going on at the provincial level regarding property assessment. So until that review is finalized, we're in a holding pattern with property assessment. So with no change in assessment between 2025 and 2026, retaining the same tax ratios ensures property tax stability from year to year. So residents and business owners know what to expect in their property tax bill. So to encourage financial sustainability, the recommendation is that council recommend the starting tax ratio for the 2026 tax year, which is essentially the same ratio as 2025. Thank you.
Questions, comments, and motions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. I move that we recommend the starting tax ratio for the 2026 year. Status quo is recommended by the Treasurer.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Purcell. Any questions or comments? Councillor Keel.
So, I mean, I it's not as big of a problem, but for some people, to me, it's a pretty huge problem. So the rest of us are all still sitting at our 2016 numbers, which of course are extraordinarily low. But I build a house tomorrow and MPAC comes by next week and assesses it. I'm assuming it's assessing it at present value. So are new builds not being absolutely like, so how are they figuring that one out?
So if you like, I can have MPAC come to do a presentation on that, but my understanding is they're still using the comparables of
Back to
2016. Yeah.
Okay.
Can add, that's what what was it, AMO? Yeah. AMO, that's what the minister indicated is That's apparently what they're doing. I'll go with that.
No change.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the motion. Those in favor, it's carried. Thank you. Next steps. I'm skipping ahead tonight. Next steps.
So thank you. So next steps are quite simple. With the strong mayors, the budget will automatically pass now on January 22nd. So I will be bringing forward the different rate and tax ratio bylaws as I can at the first meeting in February for passing by council.
Thank you. And then moving us to confirming bylaw, Councillor Purcell.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Fernier that bylaw 2026-05 to confirm the proceedings of the special meeting of the council for January 13th, 2026 be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Thank you. Excuse me.
Moved by Councillor Purcell and seconded by Councillor Lafreniere that bylaw 2026-05 to confirm the proceedings of the special meeting January 13, 2026 be adopted and passed. Further, said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Those in favor? That is carried. And a motion to adjourn. I have the deputy mayor seconded by Councillor Purcell. Those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.